On today's podcast, we're going to talk about how you can find your success and fill your cup with our guest, Matt Cumrow. Welcome to Lift Your Future, a podcast that teaches you coping skills through stories, methods, and proven techniques to improve relationships and outcomes in your personal and professional life. I'm Nicole Winkler, a licensed therapist and executive coach. On this podcast, we'll share relatable life experiences designed to help you grow. I will provide easy, practical ways to develop thoughts, feelings, and behaviors to impact your life, both personally and professionally. My goal is simple: to help you lift your future. Welcome back to Lift Your Future. Today, we are going to talk about success. What does success look like? What does that look like for you? And when you find success, what does it feel like to still be fulfilled? Are those two things possible? We are going to talk about those things with our guest, Matt Cumrow, today. Welcome to Lift Your Future podcast, Matt. Thank you so much for being on today.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. I wanted to talk today about how to find success. We are in the middle of, I guess, what we're calling the Great Resignation, where people are really unhappy with their jobs or their careers, and they are seeking other employment, or they're just quitting without having other employment and another plan to find something more fulfilling. And I know that that's kind of a journey you went on, more than a decade ago.
It's been a long time now.
Like a decade and a half ago-ish. And so I thought that you would be a great guest to have on to kind of share your story. You were a teacher and you got into teaching to coach basketball primarily, right?
I did.
And I know you were a grad assistant at Texas as well for a while. And so if you wouldn't mind kind of sharing with listeners how you, I know your basketball journey started when you were young. So a little bit about that through college, out of college, and to now.
Okay, so started playing basketball at Nebraska Wesleyan. It was great. I had some injury issues. Realized I was going to get into coaching, and so I didn't want to have a real summer job, to be quite honest, while I was in college. So
that sounds
great. I
great.
Worked basketball camps, and so the beauty of that was the networking aspect of it. You get to meet a lot of people. A lot of people want to go talk to the head coach. Well, I was always, let's go talk to the managers. Let's go talk to the low-level guys because they're going to be the next ones to move up. So I did that. The first call I got was from University of Texas, an assistant coach there. Rick Barnes had just moved from Clemson to Texas. He's now the head coach at Tennessee. Love Rick. And had a young guy pick me up at the airport. Got to know him and everyone else well. Well, it ended up being one of my best friends, and he's the guy that recruited Kevin Durant and DJ Augustine and all the great players they've had down there over the years. So I just had an open-ended invitation to go down, be a graduate assistant. Picked a great year because, Kevin was there, so I got to be around, Kevin and the whole team, and it was great. And so we are big Nets fans now. Hopefully he stays there a while.
I know we were big OKC fans for a while.
Oh, we were definitely big OKC fans for a while.
Yeah.
So was down there, did that. Realized I didn't want to move all over the place. That wasn't for me, to be an assistant and go, to a low major, mid major, high major, maybe another high major job, and then you get a head coaching job and you start that journey over. Mm-hmm. I like consistency. I like stability. So it wasn't for me. I didn't want to have the phone to my ear all the time. And so I moved back and I coached 1 year and I taught. But while I was down in Texas, and the reason I feel like I was supposed to be there was all of the things that I'm doing now in the basketball world, I kind of learned just nobody's doing quite the same thing, but just piece by piece. And so when I got up here and I was teaching in Lincoln, I was kind of starting the basketball business on the side. And so I looked at it initially, and this is crazy thinking back on it, where, okay, in 10 years, can I be out of teaching? In 5 years, can I be a part-time teacher? And 2 years into it, I had to get out because it was so big and so busy. So one of the best things I did, I felt, was I had a stable job, but I also took the time outside of that stable job to put into another job, which is kind of what led me on this path.
That's what you spent your nights and weekends doing.
It is. And it's, you think about it, and a lot of people, I really believe, are scared of hard work. But, my days consisted of teaching, leaving the house at 7:30, 7:15 in the morning, getting home from teaching at 4:15. As soon as I get out, I left that building. Don't judge. And I worked on basketball. And it was, it was basically working 16-hour days And, you start to double up and you spend so much time on something and you kind of get to where you want to go. But again, once I got out of teaching, it's that same thing. You listen to a lot of the Kobe Bryant interviews, because I'm a big Kobe guy, of course. But you listen to a lot of those interviews and he talks about, his off-season training program. If people are putting in time from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and he's the guy that's training till midnight or waking up at 3:30 in the morning to work out, people can never make up that time on him. They could never get the amount of time and training that he was doing. And so you take all that time that I was spending and I look back and it's like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. I'd love to say it was intentional. It just was lucky and I had nothing else to do. And that was my passion, right? Basketball is my passion.
That's what you care about.
That's what I care about, yeah.
So you built Supreme Court Basketball.
Yes. And
that started as on an idea on a piece of paper. I actually remember this. I remember talking about it with you, and my husband, who was just my boyfriend at the time, was, we were asking questions, and I was really just listening to both of you talk about your business, and he asked you some good questions. You're like, I don't know, I'll have to ask other people. But I know you really leaned on your support system and kind of your power base and the people that you knew, and you asked a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So how did you decide which, there's peaks and valleys,
no question,
right?
Yeah.
And how did you know when you were on the right track, and how did you know when you were not quite on the right track?
Well, it's a great question, and business has changed so much. When I started, it was just camps and private lessons, and now I don't really deal with much in the camps and private lessons. Camps we're getting into a little bit because selfishly my kids are at that age, so we can get them in there and they can play. But when I had a bunch of people come up to me at those camps and just say, hey, look, we'd like for you to coach our son or coach our daughter. What does this look like? It's like, oh, okay. Well, we kind of tripped onto having teams.
Okay.
And, one of the big advantages I had in Lincoln was I knew all the coaches in the city, all the high school coaches, because of my coaching background. I'd coached at Fall City Sacred Heart, between college and going to Texas as a GA. And so I knew those people, and they were all really good to me and trusted me. So we get to the teams, and look, the team part, it's not always easy. You talk about peaks and valleys. You know me, I'm a people pleaser. I want everyone to be happy. And trying to meet the expectations of every parent in regards to, look, we both want the same thing. We both want their son or daughter to have the best experience they can have. But the challenge is how to get to that point. And
everybody has their own journey.
Everybody has their own journey.
Yes.
We've had kids that are, mid to low level players that end up being varsity starters by the time they're a senior in high school. They're mid to low level players, maybe as a 5th, 6th grader. It takes time for some kids, and it takes time for some people.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Not at all. In a lot of ways, I think it's a benefit, because those kids, if they do it right, they learn to work hard. They learn to persevere. They learn all the lessons that they need to learn to continue to move up in the world.
The resiliency.
Exactly.
What sports is really supposed to teach us.
Exactly. So you look at a young man in Lincoln now, Malachi Coleman. Malachi he's a top 100 football recruit. Selfishly, I'm a little biased. I would say top 50. But, he's a kid that played basketball with us forever. And, Malachi wasn't always on the top team, but he's a great kid that worked his tail off and just kept pushing and pushing and pursuing and pursuing. And all of a sudden, besides being a really fantastic football player with a bright future, he's a good basketball player. It's just because of the type of kid he is.
Yeah. Well, and what you're talking about is mindset and grit.
No doubt.
And that is something that I know you teach in your programs and your coaching programs, and with your coaches and with your teams.
Yeah, a lot of it is training the coaches, and there are always things that we can do better, right? And for the longest time, and you and I talked about it just before we got on here, I've spent so much time, you talk about personal growth. A lot of my time was working in the business because it was just me for the longest time. And it sounds crazy when, we came to a point a couple years ago before I hired an employee. I had 31 spring summer teams. We're running 10 to 15 tournaments, and I'm doing it all myself. Not exactly the brightest thing in the world.
Still working 16 hours.
Still working, yes, and trying to be married and have a family. Not
and on the phone all the time.
Yeah, thank God I've got a patient wife. But, we've transitioned a lot. And one of the things that when I work on the business, we need to do a better job of, no doubt, is coach the coaches and teach them what to do. But having more of a support system, within Supreme Basketball should help us to reach that goal.
So what does your business look like now?
Oh boy. It is
from a piece of paper like 15 years ago or 16 years ago to
right now. Yeah, right now we own the Kinetic Sports Complex in Lincoln, which is an 8-court facility, converts to 12 volleyball courts. We very fortunate to use Speedway Village. The ownership and leadership there is great. Lloyd Williams, love them. So we use that. It's another 8-court facility. So we've got 16 courts within a 10-minute area, from one door to the other. It's fantastic. So we've got that going. We have a league of 350 teams, in the fall, winter. We've got tournaments in the fall, winter that in Lincoln average about 300 teams per event. We run tournaments in Columbus, Kearney, Grand Island. And spring, summer, it's just kind of repeat. We had 96 teams under our umbrella, just our program in the fall, winter. We've got 123 in the spring, summer, and it's so it's a lot to manage. And look, my people make me look smart, right? Ryan Reeder, Alicia Wright, Moncho Wilson, they make me look good.
It's true, they do.
Well, they have to, because it's not me.
No.
But it's just grown so much, and we probably still need more help.
But there's the need there.
There is the need.
And then you have the nonprofit, which I obviously love and am passionate about your nonprofit. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, so, and I'll make this a little bit longer of a story. So our program got to a point where we were really solid. And then a good friend of mine, Mike Mackey, who's up here in Omaha, runs Team Factory, just does a fantastic job. And we've been friends for a long time before that. But Mike reached out and talked about combining the teams, putting a Nebraska Supreme program together that goes and competes on the top level of the Under Armour circuit. And, to Mike's credit, he's right on that. It's worked just like he said it would. But we've had fantastic kids and fantastic families. You take the kids like a Jaden Dawson, Isaac Trout, a Jason Green, a Cale Jacobson. Those are great kids and great players. But the parents too. To me, it's when we form these teams, it's about more than just talent collection.
Sure.
It's not just getting the best players. The pieces need to fit. And you couldn't ask for a better group of parents to go with that. But with that nonprofit, there's just a lot of work we need to do with that. So we have a lot of young men and kids that maybe don't have the financial means to be able to afford to play, and
especially at that level.
Well, and
it's very expensive.
Exactly. So you look at our trip to Atlanta here in a couple of weeks. You're looking at a $35,000 travel budget for just 3 teams. And that's not covering everything we need to cover, and there's so much more we can do with feeding the kids. And, we take care of those guys down there, but we don't take care of them the way I'd like to take care of them, and be able to provide a little bit more for them. I think we need a tutoring program, and the meals and the tutoring need to be on a year-round basis. And that's what we're striving for. We'll get there. It's just going to take a while, but we'll definitely get there. But yeah, the teams they've been great, and they've been fun. And yeah, those kids are fantastic, but there's so many kids, and it just doesn't necessarily matter the level they play. It's just my joy in doing this, and I'm a small town kid, as you know. I just like people. My joy comes from seeing the kids and parents out, whether it's in Omaha, whether it's in Lincoln, whether it's small town Nebraska, watching them play, seeing them grow up, seeing them become financial advisors or lawyers or doctors or coaches, hopefully. And I just love that. That's the best part of it all.
Watching their whole journey that
No doubt.
Really ultimately underneath everything doesn't have anything to do with basketball.
Exactly.
That's what brings them together. That's how you meet them. That's where they learn this hard work, dedication, determination, grit, resiliency. But then how do they carry that forward in their lives? Because I don't know this percentage, but it's very small of how many people actually go professional. That play. Do you know the percent?
Oh,
I have
gosh,
no idea.
I don't know the percent, but it is so small and minuscule. But these guys, as to your point, are going to be professionals in life. And I've learned a lot more through athletics than I ever did in school. Sorry to all my teachers out there, but it's the truth. Athletics teaches you everything you need to excel in life.
So you're not sending your kids to school?
Yes, they need to go to school year round.
No, thank you very much. No, I know you spoke kind of to the opportunities that presented themselves to you and like knowing that those were probably the right moves for you. How did you know if you were like not quite on the right track and you need to pivot?
Well, a lot of times it's the parents and the clientele that tell me, right? You know, if our camps and clinics aren't drawing what they used to draw in terms of numbers, well, we've got to adjust what we're doing a little bit. And, you know, if our team numbers have not dropped ever, and I hope it stays that way, but if the increase isn't at the percentage we hope, we have to do a better job of finding out what that is. And if it's coaches and coaches education or better coaches, and that's probably the thing that has drawn people the most in the spring summer, because with the exception of a few coaches here and there out of the 123 teams, all of them are current, former, future high school coaches. And that's a special thing. Now, is every single one of those kids ready? No, some of them need some seasoning, need to develop, but they're getting there and they're around other people that can do that. But I think so much of it is your client base will tell you what is working and what is not. But the other part of it is, you know, as the old Texas AD, you know, we don't want to keep up with the Joneses. We want to be the Joneses. And I think it's important to stay cutting edge. What can we do to get ahead? So you take our Nebraska Supreme Nonprofit Program. We've got a deal with Open Doors right now. And unfortunately, I thought we were going to be the first AAU program in the country to have it, and we're the second because the owner and founder's brother played for MoCan, darn it. But you know, how can we stay ahead of the game? How can we help with NIL, such a huge part, for example, of an athlete's future? How can we stay ahead of the game? How can we educate the parents on what this looks like? How can we educate the kids on what this looks like, so they can continue to progress, so by the time they're ready to go to college, they can capitalize on that? And how can we stay ahead? What's the next step? What's the next step? But
I hear in that too, like creating a well-rounded person, you know, helping families, helping the community really at large, because that's what you're doing. It's not just about,
no doubt,
that the basketball. Obviously, that's what brings people together.
Yeah,
so
no question.
I love that. I know something else that you do very, very, very well, which it's called referral marketing, technically, which is, you know, when we use our power base, our friends, our family, the people that we network with, other customers, consumers, to spread the word. And, you know, we know that word of mouth is the best source of referral, and when somebody has a great experience and shares that. And one of the things I admire a lot about you is your ability to meet people, network. We literally can go to an airport in, I don't even know the strangest place I've been to with you, but you know somebody, like either at the airport, on the airplane, at the hotel, walking down the street of Chicago. Like, you always know someone. You're very good at making those connections, keeping those connections, and fostering that. So can you speak to kind of your philosophy about that, where you learned it?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I don't know where I learned it. You know, I wouldn't call either of my dad loves people, and maybe I get it a little bit from him. But to me, it's just getting to know what everyone likes and what everyone wants. So you take where I started and take the private lessons, which it's easy to build a relationship in private lessons. You know, the kids are all there because they're having a good experience. Otherwise, they wouldn't come. The parents are there because the kids want to be there and they're happy. So that part's easy. The camps, clinics, you know, you have all of these kids rolling through there, you know, sometimes up to, I think the most we had in one night was 270 kids, 3 groups of 90. Oh my goodness, I don't know how I did some of that stuff sometimes, but to me, it's just the personal, who do you know? And, you know, one kid might like a certain college basketball team that I like, and you build a relationship with them there. One kid might like a totally different team or player that I don't like, and I'm going to give it to that kid just the same. But because of that, I can talk to the kid, and if, let's just say, and I love KD obviously, but let's say, you know, a kid wears a Kevin jersey and we bond over that. Well, he's going to wear a Kevin jersey every single time he comes to anything because he knows there's that connection and we're going to talk. Well, that leads to getting to know the parents and forming a relationship on a more personal level. And, you know, I do think I really try to do a good job with that because I want to get to know the kids. I want to get to know the parents. Good Lord bless me with a great memory. So you take all those kids that are there, and I can learn every single kid's name. So by session 2, boom, I've got it. And I do think that personal touch helps. So if you've got 50 kids in a gym, and at any given point I can look back and say their name, hey, keep your head up, whatever it may be. Parents notice that stuff. And it's just the personal touch and going out of their way. And I don't think enough people take the time to send a book to someone, send a thank you card, as old-fashioned as that may be, instead of email, just mail it, do something right for somebody else, send a bottle of wine. And those are things that I've done well over the years, things that I need to do more of and get better at. The busier I've gotten, the harder it is to keep up with some of that stuff.
Sure.
But my whole business has been network, referrals and networking and then referral marketing. That's all it's been. If I actually knew what I was doing from an advertising standpoint, I could be halfway dangerous, but I don't. I mean, it literally, that's the way everything got going.
And continues to go, because you're branching outside of Nebraska now. And so...
Yeah, and it's those, again, it's the people you meet along the way, and it's the partnerships that we form with the Bradley Beal program in the St. Louis area, the Run GMC program in Kansas City, Team Durant, of course, in Washington, D.C. Great people. They're just fantastic people, and you build that relationship with them, and I just love seeing those guys. Take the basketball part out of it, I think my son is going to get Kevin's dad, who again runs the Team Durant program, to come out just because Colby likes him. Okay, perfect. I'm just happy that I get to see my friend. Exactly.
It's about those relationships.
No
and bonds.
question.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for being on today. I really appreciate you sharing your insights, your knowledge. I know people are in kind of a tough spot. Some people are in a tough spot of, what do I want to do with my life, and where do I want to go from there? And I want, this to be an inspiring story, because I am inspired by your story, to share with people about how to really go for what you want and take that risk, take that chance, and don't be afraid to put in the hard work.
As long as they put in the hard work, they can, if they've got an 8-hour-a-day job, they've still got plenty of time. They can work on another job and another career and read books and do research. They can get where they want to go.
Yes. So I often will say to clients that say, I didn't have time to do that. You had the time, you just chose to do something differently with it.
Exactly.
So I am very cognizant of saying, I ran out of time, or I didn't have time. And I say, well, I had the time, I just chose to do something else with it, because that really ultimately is the truth and the bottom line.
Yeah, no doubt.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Bye. Thank you so much for joining us today. You can reach out to me at liftyourfuture.com if you or someone you know is looking for coaching. You can also email me at Nicole, Nicole, at liftyourfuture.com. Have a great week.